Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And I see a lot of people joining our call, and they're from all over the Philippines, from as far north as Cagayan to as far south as General Santos. It's really such an exciting time to come together. I see that there are more than 500 people in our Zoom meeting and more than 790 people attending or looking at our Facebook Live feed. All right, so okay, so let me share with you in the next few minutes an overview of how we can be able to communicate using the digital stage that is now thrust upon us. Okay, so I don't know if, especially our Filipino friends are here. I don't know if you recall this personality. Do you know her name? You can write down in the chat room. What is her name? She was the quintessential, iconic representation of the stern librarian, okay? Unfortunately, Meli Tagasa, all right, Miss Tapia, popularly known, passed away in 2018. And I think her passing also signified that, hey, librarians are not really like Miss Tapia. Our librarians today are young, they are professional, and they are so knowledgeable and excited to be not only collectors of books, but also brokers of information. So we welcome our new librarians to this call, and I think people who are working in libraries or using libraries make up more than 70% of our audience, all right? So, and to all our friends, you know, coming from as far away as Dubai, there's an Indian high school there, namaste to all of you, and Burundi also, right, represented here. So welcome to all of you, and let's frame this webinar within the context of what we just went through. And I referred to the elephant in the room, the big COVID-19 induced pandemic. What happened here, according to Satya Nadella, who is the CEO of Microsoft, the successor of Bill Gates, he said in April of last year, he noticed that we've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in a matter of 2 months. So immediately it became necessary to do things online, okay? That's a challenge that still for many of us remains, but I think we have to move on. We have to adapt and we have to make use of these new platforms with which we can communicate and share information like good librarians do, all right? So, okay, so you want to be effective speakers, okay? And you want to be on the digital stage, okay? All right, that's a great thing to want, but are you ready for it, okay? I will not pretend that at the end of this webinar, you will all be like experts doing it. But let's just say that within the next few minutes, that we will have enough references and maybe build up enough confidence so that next time we are asked to speak on a digital stage, we will be able to perform our role with excellence and confidence. The role of the digital speaker is the same as the role of a teacher or a communicator. And it is basically to share information or maybe to persuade people to adopt a certain idea or practice or even product. It can also be to entertain others, just to have some fun times together, all right? Now, for today, our objectives are, well, number one, to explore, to get to know what is this digital public speaking as an emerging medium. All right. And we also want to strategize and learn what are the best practices so that we can effectively speak online. Thirdly, and this is something that should become personal for all our attendees, we should be able to prepare ourselves mentally to take on the role of a performer on the digital stage when required, all right? So now, what do engaging performers on this digital stage use? I would like to refer to three things: the head, our hands, and our heart, okay? Like a good teacher or communicator, it all starts from the head too, you know? Everything that we know, everything that we have been trained to do, that's something already in our head. But getting this information, these messages from our heads to the heads of our audiences is a big challenge. There can be many things that could impede us from doing that successfully. So, but we are, I think, prepared to do this because we are trained to be librarians, to be teachers. We are good students, all right? And that's fine, okay? We are subject matter specialists. That should boost our confidence. Why? Because we have something to share. We have a domain that we actually master, and we can communicate that effectively. The other thing is our hands. And this has to do with how we perform on that stage, okay? Our hands are the manipulatives, okay? Our hands means that we're able to manage our presence using the tools that we have available for us. Do you know, for example, what are the key features of a Zoom room? All right. Do you know how to use the chat room? Nakita ko, I noticed that people actually use the Q&A feature in the Zoom meeting to share their names. Well, that's not really the place to do that. No? Maybe you can share your names and some greetings in the chat room. But Q&A is for questions. So meaning to say, we really need to be masters of this tool that is now made available to us. You know, there's one platform that became really successful and highly utilized during the pandemic. It is Zoom, right? So we need to master Zoom and other similar platforms too, because other companies, other organizations prefer one platform over another for one reason or another. But the third part that we need to use is our heart, especially if you're on stage. This is where people see that you care for others, that you are able to establish relationships, and that you leave a lasting impression because, in a way, you have inspired your audience. This is the heart. So head is your intelligence quotient. It will get you your job. The hands, all right? That is your ability to perform, all right? That will get you probably a very satisfactory rating at work, but it is the heart at the end of the day that will get you your promotion. So, just some academic backgrounds, okay? Some models of communication theorists, okay? What happens in a communication situation is you have a sender, somebody who wants to communicate. It can be the librarian. He has a message, okay? But he needs to send this message across to another recipient, probably a student, a library user. But for him to do that, he has to encode this message, okay? And send it through a channel from which it is decoded before it is received by the recipient. Okay, this is the Shannon and Weaver model, 1948, just after the war. You know, the war actually gave rise to computers because there was a lot of, you know, codes and, you know, Morse code. Okay, those is one of the things that they used to communicate before. They kept things in secret. Okay, in fact, the Turing machine was actually a predecessor of the modern day computer because it was something that you coded instructions into, all right? So all of these things, the theorists at the time were thinking already along the lines of computing. But I think in general terms, it helps us understand that there are many participants in a communication process, chiefly you as the sender, but also what is your message and where do you send it, the channel, and who is your audience, the recipient. Okay, let's not forget that framework, because in our checklist for effectivity, this should be considered as well. And then there's feedback. And that's why we're asking you to sign in a feedback form. No? Now, I'd like to highlight Marshall McLuhan, because in 1964, he came out with a book, Understanding Media, which I think is still relevant to us this day, okay? And he's famous for a few things, like his message. The medium is the message, okay? So during the war, they used to send, homing pigeons to transfer messages or codes from one area to another. Okay, so if you were using that medium, well, you had to learn how to raise pigeons, okay? So our medium is the message, and we shape our tools, and thereafter the tools shape us, okay? That's a thing to think about. Now, the new electronic interdependence recreates the world in the image of a global image, a global village. Look at the world today. In the pandemic, we have really become a global village, okay? We need vaccines, and everybody all over the world, will have to plow through it, negotiate their way to getting the vaccines to their localities, no? So thinking about trials and effectiveness or efficacy levels, that's a global issue. And everybody has a stake, something to say about it, okay? So Marshall McLuhan, when he first came up with that hashtag, the medium is the message. Actually, the book came out with a typographical error. It said, the medium is the massage. And when they told him, sir, there was a typographical error, and he said, okay, go on with that. We can make use of that still, because, after all, yes, the medium is the massage. The medium is what you will use to become more influential, to become more effective at communications. And thereafter, there were 4 ways to go about it. So you can either say the medium is the message, or the medium is the mess age, because sometimes we put ourselves unnecessarily into a big mess, all right? But it can also be, the medium is the massage, okay? It is what will temper your positions to make it more acceptable. Or it can also be, the medium is the mass age, because especially now in the age of social media, everybody can say anything on their own platforms, okay? So things have turned around quite radically since then, okay? Now, online public speaking, also known as digital oratory, what is it? It is thesis-driven. You have something to say. It is vocal. Yes, people who have mastered their vocal powers actually have an edge here, because this is where you showcase, your ability to project, your ability to dramatize using your voice, okay? And it is a public address housed within new media platforms, okay? So there are new media platforms coming up almost overnight today, all right? But like all other public speeches, an online speech should be well prepared, organized, well reasoned, and well rehearsed. You just don't get on the stage without any previous preparation, right? Now, if you're worried already, well, just take comfort that, the expert in anything was once a beginner. We always need to begin somewhere, and it is practice that makes perfect. Enunciation, pronunciation, okay? projection of your voice. All of these things you will become better at if you practice. Okay, so online speaking opportunities are not created equally. Each speech will have different goals, okay? So you can speak about anything that you are prepared to speak about. If you are a librarian, there are probably many things that you can share to your clients, okay? So our librarians, for example, because they cannot accept clients to the library anymore because of the lockdown, well, what they have done is they have conducted virtual library trainings or virtual library tours to students from various schools around the country. And I think that's a great show of their mastery of their science, okay? So, and they know what they want to say and they know their audience, and that's why they can become very effective communicators, okay? So, if you're presenting a speech live, you're speaking synchronously. Synchronous, syn, the same, and chronos, time, the same time. So I'm speaking here, and I'm sure people in the Zoom room can hear me instantaneously, and those on Facebook can hear me almost instantaneously. There's a slight lag, but that's fine too. It's like almost instantaneously. However, you may also speak asynchronously, meaning to say I speak now, but like 5 hours later, somebody gets hold of the recording and he can experience my talk as if like he or she was actually attending this webinar, okay? So synchronous and asynchronous. Now, in synchronous speaking, what is nice is you can adopt face-to-face public speaking strategies, including live audience feedback. See, live audience feedback is when people applaud you, okay? That's fine in a face-to-face setting, but in a virtual setting, you may need to ask people to use the clap sign, all right? Or to say something congratulatory in the chat room, okay? In asynchronous speaking, you're able to control the content more easily because you can record it again. And if there's a technological error, you can still fix it, just like the 12-minute video you watched earlier about the 8 lessons we learned from the pandemic. That was recorded and you watched it now. That was given like January 28th. And now, like a month later, almost a month later, you're still learning the same lessons from the recording. Now, new media has expanded the audience pool for public speaking. I said, you know, more than 962 now watching us on Facebook and more than 500 on Zoom. Oh my God, that's more than any physical audience that we can ever handle inside our institute at any one time. Huh? So new media has created opportunities for us, okay? Traditionally, when you have a face-to-face meeting, you have a training session, yeah, 40 people to a class, that sounds really reasonable, okay? But now, it's live. You think in terms of multiples because the digital stage allows you to engage a much broader, a much wider audience. So if you're speaking publicly, physically, you know, your audience is right there before you. And you can count them. That's why they are discrete, no? You can count them individually. You can see the colors of their clothes. But in an online speech or performance, you may have a dispersed audience. And sometimes it's like you really feel like you're just talking to a monitor. Whereas in fact and in reality, you are engaging an audience that you do not necessarily see, okay? So let's take a look at some of the tools that you have to master when you are performing on the digital stage. The number one is your microphone. Now, tell me, in the gadget that you are using to access this webinar, where is your microphone? Do you even know where your microphone is? It's very important that you know where your microphone is to check that it is working. And also, you know, it is an appropriate distance from you, because if you come very close, then your sound will change. Or if you're too far away, people cannot hear you very well. So your microphone is a powerful tool. Make sure that you use it to your advantage. You know? So you need to sound good on stage. And the first thing you really have to check is the high quality of your microphone. All right? What do you need to do? That's why before this webinar, we really had to check our microphones. A sound check is important. We need to stamp out echo. Sometimes there are amplifiers or digitizers that produce a kind of echo to a recording. And we don't need echo when we have a webinar. Why? The simple reason is that we are not in a karaoke bar. Okay, so do away with the echo. Now, make sure you're not too close or too far from the microphone. As again, if you're too close, then you can be like deafening. Or if you're too far, you cannot be heard very well. If there's sound processing and it's distracting, don't use it anymore. But sometimes there are applications like Crisp that you can use to reduce background noise, especially those who are using headsets. You know, they can probably control that also. Now, the other thing to check is your internet connection, because, hey, it's not always available and it's not always reliable, especially here in the Philippines now. So make sure that you have a stable internet connection. If you are in a place where the signals are not good, move to another place where the signals are better. All right. So, because verbal delivery is key in a digital speech, then your vocals need to come to the fore. And we don't like you to be just a voice, all right, behind the slides, and your body is not visible to an audience, but your voice can carry a lot of meaning. So to be more effective, you have to practice and practice and practice to be perfect. Okay. So record yourself. Okay. This is a good advice. Record yourself on your smartphone or maybe on your iPad or laptop, okay, or a computer. And don't keep that recording to yourself. Share it with your coach, your teacher, your mentor, your friend, your office worker, all right? So ask them for their opinion. Ask for their advice, their criticism. Then you can say, okay, this is an area I need to improve in. Be humble, no? Don't think that you are a superstar already. You're just starting here. So consult other people, okay? Ask for their honest opinion. They will tell you whether you are effective, you sound lively and full of energy, or whether you are flat or you're not interesting at all, okay? So some friends are really brutal about their comments. That's fine too. Now, sound and projection are variables that can affect your verbal delivery in digital contexts. Earlier, I was feedbacking to Irene because her microphone had some static. Static is a noise, you know? And it can actually distract people from your key messages. And it can influence your credibility as a speaker and the likelihood that your audience will continue listening to you to the end, okay? So avoid noise, okay? And there can be many forms of noise when you have a digital meeting or presentation. The other tool that I want you to focus on is your camera. Now point to me where your camera is, okay? Just point it to me, okay? Because some people don't even know where the camera is, and that's why they're not looking at it. They're looking elsewhere or looking at their notes When you look down on your notes, what do they see? They see your head. And in my case, you know, you see that I have no more hair. Okay, so I have HIV. Head is visible, all right? But the camera, what does it do? It's an optical instrument used to capture an image. And it uses light to capture that image, all right? Of course, now cameras are so well advanced, very advanced, they adjust themselves. They already capture the light, and they can actually like manipulate how much light can be allowed into the picture. No? So what's visible in the video? How you really have to check. And that's why rehearsals, very important, because that's where you check, you know, what is visible in the video. Remember, when people watch you from a monitor, screen, or from your laptop or iPad, or even from your smartphone, they look at a rectangle, okay? And you have to know exactly what's happening, what's captured within that space, okay? What's visible in the video? You need to be conscious that the camera presents you within that framework. So where is the camera? How many cameras are there, okay? If you see Corina Sanchez, one of our television personalities, sometimes they're looking at you here and then they turn and then because there's a second camera there, right? So that happens also. And we can do that also even in Zoom meetings. No? Now, be aware of those cameras because you have to maintain eye contact with your audience as much as possible. Don't lose that. All right, somebody's calling me. What is this? Hold on. Sorry about that. You see, that is what we call noise. I was making a presentation and somebody calls me, and the call came through to my phone as well as through to my iPad. So that's noise, distraction, unwanted. Take it away, right? Keep your eye contact though, because that is your link to your audience. Eye contact is still a very key part of a digital presentation. Now, how do you look good on the digital stage? Okay, because your camera is an optical device making use of light, you have to know your light conditions when you perform, okay? So if you can, sit facing a big window in front of you, light in your face, okay? If that's not available, you can have artificial lighting. You can have, you know, many lamps are now available. Ring lamps are very good, very, very portable and cheap, all right, available now. That's good too. Now, you also control your background, okay? Because people are so critical, what they see within the frame, sometimes they can make them laugh at you, okay? Now, the camera has to be positioned right. I prefer that the camera is just slightly above your eyes. Why is that? Because if you bring the camera down and you're looking down at the camera, what do they see? Your audience will see your eyes are half closed. They will even suspect you're sleeping already and you have not even begun your speech yet. So bring the camera a little higher above your eye line, okay? So that to your audience, you are bright and alive and energetic, ready to speak to them, okay? So just one trick, all right? The other one is fill the frame. Don't be too distant that you're only a tiny portion of your screen, nor too close that you suffocate the screen with your face, okay? Now, what do you wear when you are in a digital stage? Wear something appropriate for the occasion, okay? If it's an office meeting, wear something that is good for the office. So some office attire will require you to wear a collared shirt, for example, or a dress, depending on the culture of your office, right? So wear something appropriate. Now, wear something bright and solid. Solid colors work very well, except probably red, because red is a color on a digital platform or in front of a camera has a tendency to bleed. In other words, you know, it will look different, okay? And even white can become so resplendent, okay? It can reflect a lot of light. You will look like an angel if you have very bright lights and you wear white. Okay? Wear something solid, but another color. Now, remember also that there is a mute button. When you speak, you unmute yourself, okay? Sometimes it happens that in a conference or in a webinar, you forget that you are already speaking, but you have not unmuted yourself. That's another thing that you have to consider. Make sure you know what are the controls available to you and use them to your advantage. Don't forget, your facial expressions are also visible in a digital speech. So those who are very adept at making themselves up using makeup, that's very good. But don't use evening makeup during a daytime presentation. You know? So there's such a thing as appropriate makeup also, okay? But your facial expressions, okay? The way you engage your audience, okay? The way you smile, don't forget, you can also smile. Huh? They record how your message and they imprint that message in the brains of your audiences. Now, check your background, whether it's messy or distracting. I will show you later a few examples of what is distracting background. All right, here we are in picture A, up there. Okay, what's distracting there? And probably seen this, no? This is an office conference, early morning. And then guy on the upper left corner, you know, after the meeting is over, stands up, gets his coffee, and everybody sees his boxers, you know? And the girl had to like call him and tell him, hey, we're all watching you, okay? So be careful about what you show on your camera, because it can really be distracting. It can be messy, okay? In letter B, this is a digital background that is chosen, but I think it's not appropriate for the purpose of the meeting, okay? And it makes him look different and funny, right? In letter C, there's an inappropriate picture at the background of this guy attending a webinar. So people will tend to focus on that picture and what the farmer is doing to the cow, all right, instead of him as a speaker. Do away with distracting elements in your background. You can always fix your background. In letter D, this is it's a webinar or a meeting. And I think their teachers and their principal used an application which changed her face into a potato. But she didn't know how to get out of being a potato, so she remained a potato all throughout the webinar. Okay, so avoid that. If you have to use an application, make sure you master that application. All right. What about this one? In letter A, so he is talking to a few CEOs of major companies. And all of a sudden, his pet jumps in front of him, okay? Now that's a major distraction, even if many people love cats. Now, in letter B, what do you have here? A presenter, you know? And you see, it's very formal. He's dressed up for a formal presentation. But all of a sudden, his daughter, a young girl, comes through the door and greets him and asks him questions. And he's followed by a younger boy. And the nanny, I think, is running after them and bringing them out of the door, closing the door. It's so funny looking, no? The letter C, okay, this is an early morning report. I think she is a newscaster. And she's talking in Spanish, making a report. And all of a sudden, the husband comes out in his briefs. Now, so that's something terribly funny. Okay, so if you use front light, look at the effect of light on your face. It just makes your face very clear, right? So we encourage you to employ appropriate light. Make it come from the front. Make it come from behind the camera, okay? Look what happens when the light comes from the back. Automatically, your camera will adjust itself and will darken your face. Now, not the kind of image that you want to project online, okay? So move your light or move yourself to face the light, or if your light is portable, move your stand or lamp in front of you, okay? You can also choose to put your lamp to one side and create what we call raking light, okay? In photography, this can be very effective, okay? In fact, I also prefer it because when the light source is in front of you, sometimes it can hurt your eyes. And if you're staring at it for some time, yeah, you can have a headache at the end of your presentation. So I prefer, and this is my setup now, look at what I have done, okay? So I have a stand, my laptop is in front of me. I have a second lamp, a smaller lamp to my left, but my ring lamp is to my right, both on the side, not in front, okay? Because this creates raking light. So the effect is, it's not full front, but it's still very helpful. And it actually helps contour your face. It gives a lot more details about how you look on that stage, okay? And look, I have my notes in front of me. I can actually write down notes. This is a very convenient setting, okay? See the light effect, raking light effect. Now, some more tips. Are you still with me? I hope you are. Okay, so during the webinar or web conference or your presentation, make sure that you will not be interrupted. There's so many things that can happen. If you want to take down notes, keep them at hand. You can also keep a glass of water because hydration is part of is key, I think. You can think better if you are hydrated. So keep things within reach. If you can be seen, use the technology to your advantage so that you are not an entirely disembodied voice talking over slides, okay? You have to be seen, okay? Now, practice, walk through, make sure your camera is working well, and picking up your voice. Clothing, we've talked about that, and be conscious of your lighting. Light should be coming from behind the camera. So, at the end of your performance, you need to check, was my thought process okay? Did I detail my speech in a way that could be easily understood? Did I perform on that stage well? And lastly, did I leave a positive impression on my audience? Did I even inspire them? Did they learn something new from me today? So that's a very good checklist at the end of your presentation. So as digital public speaking is evolving, I hope that these tips and tactics can help you not just avoid major problems, but also cross the finish line to an effective presentation. Okay, there we have learned about pivoting, performing, and excelling. Pivot, you cannot do things face-to-face, you do things online. Perform, yes, you still need to perform. If it's a digital stage, you still need to perform on that stage. The third one is excel. You have to be the best. Why? It's a privilege to be presenting on the digital stage. So PPE, pivot, perform, excel, that will be your savior in the pandemic. And that will ensure that you will not only thrive, but you will survive through difficult times. Now, let me show you some examples of great speakers. Probably you didn't know about them, no? But in 2020, leadership speakers were the following. I don't know if you know any of them. I know Pocholo. He's been a voice master. And I know Jesse. He's used to be with Inquirer. He's a good friend. All right. And he has a program on the new channel. Okay. So there are other people, and they come from different backgrounds. Some are into sales. Joey Garcia is owner of Raking restaurant, the Japanese restaurant group. Okay. And there are sales people. Now, who are the 50 most popular social media influencers in 2020 in the country? I'm sure you know some of them. Okay. Number one there in fashion. Okay. Catriona Gray. In travel, it's Trisha Gosingtian. Okay. And in food, there's Erwan Yusuf. And for entrepreneurs, there's Kim Jones. All of them, no? Coming from different backgrounds, but still being very influential because people follow them. People like and share what they're sharing with their audiences. And that's how some of these celebrities have thought it well to like monetize on their popularity and their celebrity status. Okay, so I don't know if you know, but look at the pictures that they use for their promotionals. You see, they make very good use and very effective use of light. Who are the top 10 Instagram influencers in the Philippines? Last year, number one is somebody you all know, with 15.8 million followers on Instagram, Ann Curtis, okay? She can even monetize that. And there's Pia Wurzbach, Catriona Gray, and many others. Okay. Oh, so lalaki of the 10, there's only one guy here, James, okay? And in Twitter, look, see, nare-reflect din sila in Twitter. Ann Curtis, with 13.9 million followers. Jose Marie Visceral, Vice Ganda, okay? Also 13.9 million followers, okay? Fastest growing include Alex Gonzaga, okay? Again, there's Ann Curtis there. Now, I'd like you to, if you have time, to listen to some of the best TED Talks in the Philippines. This was an earlier list in 2016, but they're still very, very interesting speeches. These are recorded speeches, but it can be, put yourself in their situation when you make a speech. TED Talks are designed so that you can explain a radical idea, an idea that can change people's lives in less than 18 minutes. That's all you have to explain yourself, okay? So it's a very interesting concept, and it can be a challenge for us too, right? So take a look at this. I will share this video with you, and you can do this in your spare time, okay? Now, I will end here, and I really want to thank all of you for joining us today. I don't think listening to me over 45 minutes or so will make you an expert. But this is just the beginning of a journey that you personally can take to become a more effective speaker, a more effective presenter on the digital stage. You can pivot, perform, and excel, and I wish you all the best in the days ahead. Thank you very much for joining us today.